The Educational Effectiveness Committee is being called to order. Can I get a roll call vote?
Yes,
Roll
sir.
call.
Dr. Bofi? Present. Dr. Bofi is present. Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston? Is absent. Mr. Garvey? Absent. Ms. Holloway?
Present.
Dr. Jones?
Present.
Ms. Lewis is absent. Ms. Orange Jones is absent. Mr. Rock? Absent. Dr. Thomason?
Present.
Present. And Ms. Fauché? Here. Is present. You have a quorum.
Good morning. Your consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 5.1 through 5.4. Second.
Okay.
Your first item is on page 6, item 4.1, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 746, Louisiana Standards for State Certification of School Personnel regarding early childhood certification. The department recommendation is to approve the revisions to Bulletin 746 regarding early childhood ancillary certification.
Can I get a motion?
So move. Second.
Any comments from the board?
Members, this is a series of changes that, as we transition the requirements, which have been long in place already for what is required for a child care teacher, this is just a process of transitioning them from the previous set of requirements to the current set of requirements. Previously, for example, a career diploma specifically would have required a teacher to teach child care. This process just establishes a timeline and transition to the new requirements so that people can effectively know what they have to achieve given their level of education in order to teach child care.
Anyone opposed on the board? Motion carries.
Your next item is on page 51, item 6.1, consideration of a records review regarding the reinstatement of a teaching certificate appropriate to the credentials of Mr. Jefferson Edwin Hayden. The recommendation is to either grant, deny, or defer.
Can I get a motion? Ms. Holloway? Okay, let's make a motion.
Okay.
And what is the recommendation? Can we get a motion, and what is the recommendation?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just put it on the table and discuss it, and then,
Okay.
You have to
Any-
make a motion to put it on the table.
okay, I'll make a motion to approve for discussion, so.
A motion by Dr. Jones. We have a second. Second by Ms. Holloway. Do you have any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Any public comments? Well, at this point, we'll ask Mr. Hayden, would you like to speak?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Hayden. I've been a teacher for 18 and a half years. That's how many years I've put into the classroom. I've wanted to be a teacher since I was a little kid. My father was a coach, teacher, principal, and then the superintendent of Richland Parish for a few years. So I've always known where I wanted to go into. It's been difficult to have to sit out these last few years and not be able to be in the classroom doing what I love to do. Right now, I'm hoping that this board will allow me to go back to doing that. I have a job offer from Ouachita Parish High School. Basically, they're just waiting to find out what this decision is to continue to do their scheduling. And like I said, it's just I love working with young people, especially young people that are at risk. And it's whereas I've been able to stay home with my son, I've had 2 children with my new wife in the last couple of years, and I've been able to stay home with them during this time. But I'm ready to get back to doing what I love to do.
Ms. Dr. Bofi.
So this is awkward for us in terms of the level of questioning that is appropriate, and but the information that we have is sometimes coded, and we don't quite get a full story. So is there something about your story that you'd like to tell us to help us understand what even got you here today?
Well, I was living on my own. I have to add a personal note to kind of make this clear. I got a divorce in 2011, 2012, separation divorce. And I moved out and basically moved into some very cheap housing. And the second year I was there, a individual who lived close by me, actually next door to me, tried to break into my truck. And then when I caught them and went back inside to call 911, they came upstairs and tried to break into the apartment to stop me. And this person had a drug problem. I had a shotgun in my apartment, and I called 911. I stayed on the phone with them. It took a long time for them to get there, and I ended up actually pulling the trigger and shooting the door, inside the door. The atmosphere of the Caddo DA's office at that time was very strict. Mr. Charles Scott, as I think you might know, passed away. Mr. Dale Cox was the acting district attorney. He made national news for being such a strict person. My public defender recommended that I take a plea on a felony, assured me that it would not affect my teaching license, and because it was no jail time. When the new DA came along, and I had finally been able to borrow some money and hire a lawyer of my own. And whenever he was presented with this case, or the new first ADA, his first comment was, "I don't know why this guy was ever even arrested." So this has been a very frustrating and very demoralizing process for me. Just one thing after another that's sort of just knocked me down. But I just have continued to try to pursue this. And now the felony has actually been removed. I know, for the purposes of this board, it still exists in terms of my certificate being revoked. But for instance, Ouachita Parish actually hired me back as a permanent substitute. I finished about half the year this year with them, teaching English and world geography, and they have offered me a job there next year, contingent on this board's decision. That's basically the deal. I was trying to protect myself, and then just one thing after another just made me extremely nervous about the process, about the situation. And I took bad advice, and I accepted a felony on my record, and it has led to this, and this is how I'm here now.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more comments from the board? Any questions, comments from Mr. Hayden? Dr. Jones?
Yes, sir. The reason I was reluctant a while ago, and I take these reviews very seriously, having been a superintendent and a principal, and the things that always concern me when I look at these record review are basically anything involving a weapon, anything involving drugs, anything involving sexual interactions with a younger person. The criminal damage to property that came out of this was a result of the people that own the apartment
Yes, sir.
charging you for the damage to the door?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That was surprising because the cost of the door didn't even amount to a felony. That was that was confusing. It was the door cost less than $500, and it was very confusing to both myself and then especially when I hired a private attorney. It was very confusing as to how they even came to the conclusion to charge it as a felony, and that was the question that the new district attorney had as well. I mean, again, he asked why was I ever even arrested, let alone charged with these crimes.
Okay, well, I know the people that wrote letters for you. Eddie Mahoney and I go back longer than either one of us. When both of us had hair, and it was Still have some color left in it.
He's a fantastic man. I'm sad that he retired.
Yeah.
He's been very good to me.
Okay, I have no further question.
Any other board members? Are we ready for somebody to make a motion?
Okay, does my motion still stand?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're just ready to vote on it, huh?
Could you clarify that the motion was to approve?
Yes, it was to approve.
Okay. Well, the motion is to approve. I wasn't sure about that myself, so the motion is to approve.
It was to approve, but it was for discussion when I put it on there.
Oh, I see. I got it now. Okay. Anybody opposed?
I have a question in
You got a
regards
question?
to November 16th, 2016.
Holloway.
2016. November 16th, 2016. Illegal use of weapons or dangerous misdemeanor. Can you clarify this? What occurred on that date?
On November 16th?
Correct.
Oh, yes, ma'am. As part of the deal that my new attorney made with the new Caddo district attorney, rather than just dismiss it completely, they reduced it to a misdemeanor. It was basically to, really what it came down to was they didn't want to dismiss it outright, and this is what the attorney determined they probably would have offered to me normally. And so they reduced it to a misdemeanor of, I believe, illegally carrying a weapon. So that would be I think that would be similar to if you were stopped and had a handgun in your glove box instead of in plain sight or something like that. Even though you had a legal right to have it, you were carrying it improperly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions from the board? A motion has been made to grant the teaching certificate, Mr. Hayden. Anybody opposed to the motion? No, I hear no opposition. Motion passes. Congratulations, and we're looking forward to hearing a lot of great things about you and your teaching, Mr. Hayden.
Your next item is on page 77. Item 6.2, consideration of granting a records review regarding the reinstatement of a Louisiana teaching certificate appropriate to the credentials of Mr. Kendall Mouton. The recommendation is either to grant, deny, or defer.
Do we have a motion?
Okay, I'll do it again. Motion to defer.
We got a motion from Dr. Jones and a second
Second.
by Ms. Holloway. Okay. Any comments from the board? Mr. Kendall, would you like to Mr. Moulton, would you like to make any comments?
Yes, sir. First of all, good morning to everyone on the board. I just want to start off talking about my personal and professional life as far as teaching. Personally, I had, first of all, I just want you guys to understand how much I love teaching the children at West St. Mary High School. Not only am I from there, but I live there, and I'm in the community, involved in the community. I see my students and kids every day. To be able to mentor them and to love on them and to build positive relationships is something that I take to heart, and I do not take it for granted. Okay. Some of the things I'm involved in the community and the school, I'm an assistant football coach, the head girls track coach. I also serve as the leader for FCA, Federation of Christian Athletes, and I also do a lot of, sometimes we do community service work in the community with the players and stuff like that. I also serve as the class sponsor for the 2018 senior class. I'm their class sponsor, so anytime they want to get something done, or they come to me and we discuss how we're going to get it done. The relationship I've built with the students and the community it means the world to me. And, you know, I came here today fully knowing what's going on. But I came by myself, but I really came with the whole city of Baldwin. Because if I lose them and they lose me, I wouldn't be able to take it. Professionally, I started teaching 2 years ago. I hit the ground running. I was in the oil field. I went to work every day. It's something that I had to do. It's something that I didn't enjoy. But ever since I started working at West St. Mary High School, I have never been to work a day in my life. I enjoy getting up and going to the school, being on campus, and just being a servant to the students in the community and to other teachers or whoever needs me. I wasn't an education major in college or anything, so I just went in and hit the ground running. The school board, they got me trained up, mass meetings, just different trainings, professional developments, and what they teach me, I applied into the classroom. I would like to make a reference to my compass evaluations. I've scored highly effective on both of my compass evaluations of 4 out of 4 on both of them as a new teacher. Also, my student learning targets, they also go on a 3 or 4 scale. My first one I got a 3, and I was upset about it, but everybody was like, no, that's fine, but I didn't want to take a 3. Next time I got a 4 on my SLT. So I've always wanted to give back to my community where I come from. I enjoy doing it every day. I have made mistakes. I'm not a perfect person. But I would like to use my platform as a teacher to help the youth without fathers, the youth with a broken home, and just kind of share my situation and some of the mistakes I've made as a young man. Let them know that trouble is easy to get into but hard to get out of, and just be a mentor and be a positive role model in their life. I don't know what's going to happen here this morning, but I sincerely ask from the deepest parts of my soul that I'm allowed to continue to do what I was called to do.
Are you finished with your comments?
Yes, sir.
You got time.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to say that reading the letters of recommendation that you have and the dedicated service that you've already been showing, that I was impressed with that. Now we have a motion to defer, and I wanted to clarify with Dr. Jones, if a motion to defer was granted, how long would the deferral? How long will it be before? What period are we talking about?
Well, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is ask him a couple of questions, because I may even change that depending on his answer. But there are a couple of issues in this that trouble me.
Okay.
One was the charge, as I remember, was possession with manufacture. Let's see, how did it say it? Manufacture, distribution, possession of a Schedule 1 marijuana. What was the actual circumstance? Was there the amount so heavy that it?
No.
Where did the manufacturer
I have
distribution?
no idea.
Because normally it's based on a number of ounces that you.
Yes, sir. That particular night, I was out with family members, and we were sitting in the area, and police approached us, and I had some marijuana, and I got a ticket and got in trouble for it. The amount was it wasn't over an ounce, a couple grams. It was a very small amount of marijuana. The charge was, from some of the paperwork I have, it's just possession. It isn't a distribution or anything like that.
No. The charge is sometimes a generic charge, and
Yes, sir.
And that's the reason I asked the questions about it. But here's the one thing that really troubles me. Back on October 12th, 2016, we revoked your temporary authority to maybe that's somebody calling me to tell me I'm wrong. Back on October the 12th, 2016, we revoked your temporary authority to teach. But apparently that didn't have any penalty for you, because as I sat here, as I read this, and as I heard your testimony again today, you continued to teach. You taught this last year. How did you do that?
Well, I took everything to my principal and to the HR of the district, and they said they were going to work with me through this, and they were going to stick by my side until whatever comes out of this, whatever happens, happens. They support me 100%, and they want me there, and I want to be there. So,
Well, I guess my concern is this. If we revoke your certificate to teach, and you continue to teach anyway, and the school board that hired you allows you to continue to teach anyway, what is the penalty for having your certificate revoked? And so that's the reason that I said on there to defer, is that you haven't served any penalty here. You haven't had anything. You're still continuing to teach. I don't know how St. Martin pulled that off, but I don't understand. You were on a temporary authority to teach in the first place.
yes, sir.
And then subsequent to that, we took that temporary authority to teach, but yet you continued to teach.
Yes, sir.
That's why I'm looking at a deferment, because I don't think you've had any penalty. And I really question how that school board thought it was okay for you to teach without any kind of credentials. And that's what's given me pause for concern. And I may be the only board member with that, but I think I'm going to, in answer to your question, Chairman, I think my recommendation would be to defer for 1 year, because I don't think there's been any penalty for him as of now.
Let's see. Ms. Edmonton is raising her hand. She's being recognized.
Dr. Jones, are you deferring because of a consequence, or are you deferring so that we could find out from the school board and the principal what exactly direction he was given? Because obviously he didn't teach without, the ability from the school board to do so.
No, he taught for a whole year. You're still teaching, is that right? As I understood what you said a while ago, you're now the senior class representative.
Yeah, those are the roles I've served,
Right,
up
and you
until-
have a compass evaluation, you have all these things.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So in effect, you were employed, I would say illegally, since October 12, 2016. And the reason I'm thinking of deferring is the fact that we revoked his certificate didn't mean anything to that school board or to you. And so, that's the problem I have, is that there's been no consequence.
Okay, so
For that.
basically it's no consequence, because in my estimation, the school board takes some responsibility in this.
I agree, but
He
I don't
was
have-
doing what the school board
Yeah, I don't-
allowed him to do. So I would say that possibly deferment is the correct action, but I would like to find out from the school board
Well-
and the administration what exactly, we don't know that conversation.
Right, and that was the next part of what I was going to add to my
Okay.
motion, was
Okay.
that I was going to ask Ms. Davis to send a letter to that school board requesting information as to how they felt that they could authorize this gentleman to teach for a year when we had clearly revoked his ability to do so. I have nothing against you personally, sir, and that's only, and I'll be honest with you, everything else had been, if you had served, if you had done what was supposed to happen and had come back and asked for a certificate today, I would have voted for it. But when I look at this and I see that we basically revoked your ability to teach, but yet you continue to teach and they continue to pay you to teach. And now if we pass this today, it'll be like that never happened. And I just have a problem with that. But I have no problem with you as a person and with recovering from it. I have a problem with the fact that your school board and your school ignored the authority of BESE when we revoked your ability to teach.
Excuse me.
Can I say something?
Recognize Ms. Edmonton.
Yes, sir. Ms. Davis, can I ask you, can we find out within the next month what the circumstances are? Because I
will say this is not all that unusual. It is the district's decision. Most will reduce them to a substitute's pay. I'm not sure if that what happened in Mr. Mouton's
Okay.
experience.
Well, I know when we sat down with human resources and my principal and everything, they were saying that it was a possibility to go to a long-term sub. I'm not really too familiar with how they handle everything, but I just know that I get to work and I, do what I have to do. And if they want to pay me, you know, I have no idea what they were thinking, sir. And as far as you know, you saying no punishment for being revoked, like every day, you know, when the situation started, I had to look in my kids' eyes and not know if somebody's going to come and remove me from my classroom every day, or, you know, if anything drastic was going to happen like that. So just every day knowing that these students might not be mine, that was
Well, I
punishment
understand that,
enough.
sir, but you really weren't supposed to be there in the first place. And
Yes,
that's the concern I have. And I don't mean, you know, I don't mean any disrespect to you or anything, and I want to see you get back in there. I'll modify my motion to defer for a month while we get more information.
I had seen Ms. Holloway, and we'll get you, Ms. Roche, and Dr. Buffy, did you have, okay. so
I
Ms.
do. I can wait. till you're
Okay,
ready.
well, Ms. Holloway. Ms. Holloway right now.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mouton. Absolutely, it's nothing against you personally. However, our job is to protect our children and to make decisions in the best interest of them, and that hopefully that the school districts would abide by policies that are in place. Dr. Jones, absolutely agree with everything that you've stated, and I'm requesting deferment
Okay.
for a
Chair
month.
recognized Ms. Roche.
Mr. Mouton, the other charge that we're looking at on here in terms of the domestic abuse, child endangerment, could you explain that a little bit to me as to what happened in that
Yes,
situation?
ma'am. Well, with that charge, I had a girlfriend at the time, and we were on, I guess you would call it bad terms. We have a child together. We were living together, and she wanted my cell phone to kind of go through it to be nosy, and I didn't want to give it to her. You know, it's my phone, and so she, you know, kind of came at me and tried to take my phone, and kind of had that kind of situation. Everything was, you know, she calmed down, I calmed down, you know, everything was fine. The next day, a sheriff comes to our house, takes her, takes my child, and a few weeks later, I'm getting served some papers to come to court. When I got to court, it was a felony domestic charge. They dropped it to a misdemeanor because, you know, they couldn't charge me with that because of what happened. You know, and when you get into domestic disputes, it's not against the person. The state has to pick it up. So I had to kind of, you know, go through this process with that. It's a misdemeanor. They dropped it to a misdemeanor, and I did everything the court asked me to do, and I've, you know, paid my debt to society, made right with my family and everything, and I've learned from it and kind of moved past it, the situation.
I would have
Motion.
no problem deferring for 1 month until our next meeting and we get more information, if that's the will of the board. I don't think deferring any longer than that would be appropriate, because I don't think Mr. Mouton is responsible for what the St. Mary's School Board, what decision they have made, as opposed to his particular situation. The charge for which his certificate was revoked occurred in 2010. There are some other things that we're considering in the interim, but I'm not sure that I don't think he should be responsible for the actions of the St. Mary's school system. So with that, I mean, I don't have a problem if the will of the board is to defer a month, but I'd like to see it come back immediately, you know, right prior to the beginning of the school year, so that we can look at it again if that is the will of this board.
Are you saying a month or until the next meeting? Is
The next
it Au-
meeting,
Is
if
it the
it's
August
not.
meeting, whatever?
Yeah,
Okay.
which would be the beginning of August, right?
Okay. Dr.
I mean,
Bophy?
if that's what most people
Excuse
are
me.
leaning toward.
Okay.
So let's get the school district cleared up, because what I'm reading in some places compared to what I'm hearing is not the same, and I certainly want to get on record. I don't want one school district upset with us for representing it as a different school district's actions. So is it St. Mary School District?
St. Mary Parish School
St. Mary's School District. Okay, that's helpful. So it seems like the board has come to a consensus on deferring to the next meeting. The point that I wanted to make to you was we cannot have enough black men role models for our students in these school systems. And so I think that that's incredibly important because so many of our boys do not see people who look like them. And as a result, we know through research that they don't have the vision for the future that they can have. And so you can go into a school and have greater impact than I can going into a school. And that's a powerful thing. And so I want you to know and understand that, but I also want you to know and understand that just the teaching profession brings on greater responsibility, and people look at you and expect different things from you. And so there's some things that have happened in your past, and I would be more than comfortable with you turning your back on the things that have happened in the past with the knowledge to know that things will be different in the future. The expectations for what you do as a human being will be different because of the virtue of the profession. And so I am excited about your interest in teaching because I think a lot of our students need role models like you. And I think through your experiences that you can provide an example and that you can help them, one, have a vision, but understand also, I think you said trouble is easy to get into, but hard to get out of. So I also was a social studies teacher and appreciate you taking on the instructional shifts that it takes to move to the kind of teaching that we have to. And I know it's not necessarily hard to change for you because you weren't in the classroom before. You're just learning a new and different way. So I appreciate your interest in the profession, but just want you to walk away with an understanding that expectations will be different, and that that means that choices have to be different.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for being here today.
And it's not an interest in teaching, it's a passion. You know, I'm not interested in this. This is what I do.
I get passion.
Yeah.
Well,
Another question that I have is, I went through this process before I got the job, the fingerprint process, turned in all the paperwork to, I gave it to Human Resources in the parish, but they ran this all through, and then a year later, it comes back, you know, saying that, you know, it was up front when I came to get the job. I was granted the temporary authority to teach, you know, in graduate school, you know, trying to get my credentials right, and then all of a sudden it's revoked, but something that was already known before I took the job. You understand what I'm saying?
That was.
I will
that
ask Ms.
certification and
Davis.
employment are two different things. So it was known by your employer, but the Department of Ed receives a copy of your background check when you complete it, and that's when it was flagged for certification purposes. So it's two separate issues.
So if I would have just did temporary.
No, it had to be done, it had to be revoked because of the conviction. But it's separate from your employment.
Dr. Jones.
You know, this to me brings up a glaring fault in the law as it currently stands. There's no teeth in the revocation of an ability to teach if a local school board can totally ignore it, because in all honesty, sir, they got your criminal records check back probably within a matter of hours now. It used to be 6 weeks, but now it's done by computer. And so within a matter of hours, they probably had it. Okay. They also, I'm assuming, Shan, they have a list that they could check to see, or they some process. Is that not correct? That they would identify that your temporary authority to teach had been revoked. And
Yeah, you notified the district.
yeah, and we notify the district as well. So, to me, the issue here, and you know, I want to be perfectly clear. I have nothing against you, and in fact, I'm more frustrated with St. Mary's school system, or any school system in the state of Louisiana, who chooses to employ someone whose criminal records check says that they should not be employable, and I have a real problem with that.
I have no felony conviction on my record, just a charge. So there's no conviction of a felony on my record.
A felony, that's just the issue.
Say what, Ms. Davis? I'm sorry.
I was just, he
You had a reason that they revoked your temporary
Yes.
authority to teach.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that reason
Yes, sir.
was under the statutory requirements to be able to revoke it. and it was a temporary authority to teach. And so apparently everybody just ignored it. And that is what drives me crazy. But I don't really have a problem. I will withdraw my motion if we want to go ahead and approve this today. This tears me apart, to be honest with you. It's not his fault,
No, it's not.
but it is a responsibility of a local school district to make those determinations.
Well, it is my fault for putting myself in the situation in the past. I take full accountability for my actions.
I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to recognize Ms. Boucher at this point.
May I ask the Superintendent White a question? Prior to certification here in the Department of Ed issuing a temporary authority to teach or a teaching certificate, do they not have access to the background check prior to their issuance of that certificate?
No. They do not, it's simply a professional conduct form, and they check whether or not they have a felony conviction on the
Did
form.
Mr. Mouton check that
Did he?
he had a felony conviction on his professional conduct form? It's not in here.
Is that a question to me?
Did you just say you had a felony conviction?
I have no felony
he
conviction.
does not
no,
have
sir.
a felony conviction.
I do not
From
have a felony
Texas.
conviction. I have a charge, but no conviction.
For the one from Texas, the felony conviction upon which the TAT was revoked in October was not a felony
No,
conviction?
ma'am. What happened, it happened in Texas.
Yes.
And I was on supervised probation. I was attending the University of Louisiana of Monroe at the time. So I had to get the probation officer there. All that had to transfer over. And when it transferred over from Texas, it shows up as a felony in Louisiana. So it's kind of like a double jeopardy thing. You know, it didn't even happen in Louisiana. I'm just transferring probation, but all of a sudden you slap on my record, you know, felony first time offender, pardon or something like that. I believe it reads. But that's kind of how that happened. And then I graduated, moved back to Texas, completed probation early, and was released on deferred adjudication and no charge. No conviction. Sorry.
All right, so what you're saying is you have never had a felony conviction?
No, ma'am, not a conviction. I have been
Because
charged, but not convicted.
The reason that this board revoked the TAT in October was based upon the felony conviction in Texas. So if you're telling me that that was erroneous,
Can we go ahead and wrap this up?
yeah, let's
you
wrap
see
it up.
page-
I'll make a motion that we grant the records review to Mr. Mouton.
Grant
A motion,
the-
a motion has been made
certification.
by,
Yes.
a motion has been made by Ms. Boucher. If it's- Dr. Jones, you got one more comment, Will?
I'd
Two
like
more
to-
comments, we saw.
Excuse me.
All right.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion or amendment to that motion, and that be that we also write a letter to St. Mary's Parish School to ask them for information as to why they did that in light of a revocation. For any reason, and I may need to word that a little better, but I do think it's important that when a certificate is revoked by BESE, that a local school board cannot choose to just ignore it. And so I would like I'd like to, I agree that we should go ahead and give this gentleman his, but I'd also like us to follow up with St. Mary's Parish to find out why they're doing that.
And before we take a vote, we see Ms. Edmonton, she's got a comment.
Yes, sir, this is the last comment, hopefully, but Mr. Mouton, unfortunately, things like this happen a lot, but the bottom line is your character and what your children see in you. And I'm hoping, based on your word, that you've learned from these things that have happened in your past, and that your kids, to Dr. Buffy's comment, that your kids can count on you. Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes, ma'am.
Your child that you had the issue with her mom.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have custody?
I have joint custody, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So those are the kinds of things, what children look at. And I just wish you all the best. And I do believe you've learned from your mistakes. And so I'm happy to do whatever we decided to do here. What did we decide?
I just have one more comment before you guys vote. This isn't about, it's about me because I'm here, it's about me, but for me, it's about my kids. The children at the school, like I have a lot of family members. That's where my mother's an educator there as well. I have a lot of cousins and family members that I get to work with every day, hands-on, and influence them in a positive way. A lot of friends. It's a very small town. A lot of friends and family, close family, may not necessarily be blood, but that's my family. And to be there with them every day and to kind of mentor and mold them every day and have them to see me there every day means the world to me. And I just don't know, if I'm not going to teach there or whatever happens here, it would not only hurt me, but it would hurt the community as well. It would be a loss for West St. Mary High School in that area of the parish if I wasn't there, and a loss for me as well.
Okay. But at this time, we're going to get ready to call for the question, but I want to make sure I clarify that we're going to check with that school board, the school system, and find out exactly why he was allowed to teach. And if I have it correctly, it seems like Ms. Voce and Dr. Jones both made a motion that we grant.
Were you the
certificate.
second, Dr. Jones?
And do it, would say?
Dr. Jones was the second.
Dr. Jones, was oh, you was the second. Okay, I got it now. So Ms.
I was
Voce
the
made
second, but I
motion.
asked to modify hers to.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all
And I
right.
accept.
Then we got a second, okay. Well, I got this, anybody object, any objections? Hearing no objections, the motion carried, and we want to say congratulations to you, Betsy.
Thank you. God bless you guys.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I wanted to say for the record that Ms. Smith is present. I did not call her in the roll.
And that concludes your agenda.
Thank you.